Welcome to the Cougar Tailgate, where BYU fandom lives. Here's your hosts, Sydney Carlson and Cole Wissinger.
Good afternoon, Cougar fans. Yes, this is the Cougar Tailgate, and like the man said, my name is Cole Wissinger. Sitting right over there is Sydney Carlson. How are you, Sid?
I'm great.
How was the week? It's been a week since we've had BYU basketball.
It has been a full
7 days.
week. It has, yep, and it was a week before that. It's been a weird schedule. We're so used to Thursday, Saturday, and here we are with full weeks in between.
I know. What's going on? And now you have to wait even more because it's Saturday. There's no BYU basketball tonight. Never tomorrow. And then
there's the women's team.
Absolutely.
What about the ladies?
Cannot forget. And so they are in the midst of their WCC tournament as a 3 seed.
Yep.
And then, barring defeat, they would be playing also on Monday night, similar to the fellas.
Doubleheader. Let's get a Cougar doubleheader going.
That's what we're rooting for. But before we move on to what is ahead, we need to look back and see how the Cougars finished off the regular season.
15-second shot clock, 8:15 game clock. Crossover by TJ. Beat Polk, lobs it up for Yoli, comes down with it. Yoli jump hook is good!
There it is.
2001, a child's odyssey. As Yoli goes over the 2,000-point plateau, and the Cougars have their game-high 8-point lead.
That was a Yoli Childs highlight because that was the highlight of the Pepperdine game. The Pepperdine Waves, to their credit, they had a specific defensive strategy. They were going up against the most efficient three-point shooting team in the entire nation, as far as all of college basketball. And they said, we're not going to let you beat us with the three. And so BYU beat them with the Yoli Childs.
And truly to their credit, it's one thing to say we're not going to let you beat us with the three, but BYU's been very successful at that all year. So being able to shut that down is pretty impressive. But man alive, it is just a sheer joy to have Yoli Childs on the floor. Mm-hmm. I can't stress enough how much I enjoy watching him and how much I'm going to miss him.
The games are now numbered. Number of times Yo and Jake Toulson and TJ Haas will be on the floor together.
Oh, gosh.
We're going to savor every single one. And this is one of the ones to remember because Pepperdine really did do a decent job at pushing the ball inside for BYU. And even when Yoli got it, and this is what kind of baffled me after he had his 25th point and they were still adopting the same exact strategy of it goes down into Yo and they would keep just one guy on him and have perimeter defense. One man against Yoli Childs, unless you're talking like that big fella for Dayton or whoever else is going to win Player of the Year for the entire NCAA, is not going to be able to take on Yoli Childs one-on-one down in the paint. He backed him up. He put it down 38 total points on 17 for 27 shooting. He also led everyone in rebounding with 14. TJ Haas led in assists, mainly to Yoli Childs with 13.
And it earned Yoli a WCC Player of the Week honor.
Again,
back to back, which surprisingly his only 2 of the entire year, these last 2 weeks.
And possibly because he didn't get a lot of playing time early in the year.
Absolutely.
And so we'll talk about WCC awards in total a little later on. But yeah, this Pepperdine game, as we were looking at it, it could have been, as so many games could have been for BYU, the game where you get a letdown. And what is just sterling about their resume going into the NCAA tournament this year is they are undefeated against that quad 4, that bottom tier where it always seems like BYU slips up just once in WCC play because the WCC season's so long and you understand the guys get tired. You have one mental slip up, that's fine. They didn't have it this year. Finally, we can officially say it. It did not happen. Pepperdine is done. WCC play is done. BYU did what they had to do.
And I was worried about it. Those 2 games leading up to Gonzaga, it felt those were just so hard. They were hard to watch. They were hard to get through. And it felt like this team was really kind of focused entirely on Gonzaga, which, not complaining.
If they were, it worked out.
It worked out great. But I did get this just like heavy anxiety as we headed to Pepperdine. Just it was nice that they had a full week to prepare, but you would hate to see the momentum that they gained from Gonzaga be unraveled in a bad loss to Pepperdine. And there have been, like you said, so many of those in years past in the WCC where we drop one that we absolutely should not, and it just like crushes the good thing you have going, your resume, and just kind of your overall confidence as a team and as a fan in your team.
And BYU's got the national spotlight now. The 100%. Attention was on them. They beat the number 2 team in the nation. They were ranked 17th. They keep moving up in the rankings. They're top 10 net and Ken Pom and whatever else you want to look at.
Right.
BYU is being looked at, and their resume, even the people that aren't watching the games, when you just look at the win-losses, finish off with a loss after Gonzaga, just push them back down to where they were, 7 or 8 seed, forget about BYU again.
You see it as a fluke. You see the Gonzaga game as a fluke at that point.
Exactly. Whereas, in reality, the Pepperdine game would have been the fluke.
Right.
But guess what? Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Because they won. But even like at halftime, right? Pepperdine was keeping it close because BYU lives and dies by the 3. One of the hottest 3-point shooting teams. And that's what kind of makes them a hot ticket for people watching in March Madness as we get forward, because pretty soon everyone's going to be watching everyone. Folks that didn't know that St. Francis had a school in Pennsylvania will be watching their basketball team play because they're going to be in March Madness. And so it's going to be fun for everyone, non-BYU fans and BYU fans alike, to see BYU heat up from behind the arc. But if they can't, we know we have Yoli down low too.
Absolutely. And like you said, so we went to this National Sports Forum, athletics did a few weeks back, and I can't tell you how many people that we met there have reached out to us since just to be like, oh my gosh, amazing win. Like, people are watching this team and they're getting excited about this team. And I think Gonzaga has been at the forefront for so long that, you've got this built-in like national following already, that people are interested in what's happening with Gonzaga, but they're also a little bit
bored.
Yes.
Okay.
They're a little bored with Gonzaga's success. So there's something really exciting about a team like BYU coming in and just playing so well and taking down a team that we're a little bored of.
That's right.
That's all.
And we are too. I can handle BYU.
Listen, I've been bored of Gonzaga for a long time.
TJ runs it into Kessler, high off the glass, and got it to go! The circus shot from TJ Haas. Now it's BYU by 15, 2:35 to go. The work is almost done here in Malibu. What a shot. That was something.
A couple more stats from Malibu before we leave you. The final score, 81-64. Jake Toulson, 3 for 3 from 3, which caps off just in the best possible way. Even in a game where Pepperdine's sole goal was to make you work for it from behind the arc, he is a top 10 individual 3-point shooting player nationally on the most efficient 3-point shooting team. He's the WCC's newcomer of the year, which is the only of the big awards that BYU took home, despite having a pretty decent candidate for Coach of the Year.
Couple snubs.
A pretty decent candidate for Player of the Year.
I mean, when you have a coach who is now being considered for the National Player of the Year, but wasn't the WCC Player of the Year, that feels a little personal, I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and then you talk about the coach, where Mark Few is, sure, he's always the best. But then when you look at the non-Mark Fews that are in the conference, Mark Pope came in brand new, had an entire – and just like hearing him talk, he sounds like a Coach of the Year kind of guy. And just changing the dynamic and the offense has always been there, but the kind of ferocity on defense, it's a new Mark Pope kind of a style, the way he got these guys playing. And – the fact that he's, new. Whenever you look at Coach of the Year, what is the difference, right, in the rest of the team? Mark Pope is new this year. It seems like that could have been. It's also weird for you and I, because we've been talking to folks from every other school during the course of this year, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too later on in the show, what we've learned over the couple months of covering these many different teams. And so I was kind of thrilled for a half a second when I saw Damon Stoudemire's name because I thought, oh, hey, the Pacific guy I talked to was gushing over Damon Stoudemire, and he did have and then by the time that thought had formulated, I realized, wait. So not Coach Pope. Darn it.
It's so wild because Mark Few has won it so many times in the WCC, and rightfully so.
Always deserved.
He's an incredible coach. He's done such amazing things with that program, and I look at the Stoudemire win, and I think that he's done such a great job with that team this year. And I think the only thing I can think the difference is that you look at where Stoudemire's team was ranked to finish.
Yeah, preseason polls and where the expectation was set.
Right, a huge jump. But I also look at Mark Pope, and granted, BYU was, projected to be third, and we finished second, so it's not as much of a jump. But you look at all the things.
We were really happy about it.
We feel great about it. But you look at all the things that he had going against him heading into this season, and he overcame insurmountable odds. Without Yoli, you lost Gavin Baxter early on. We've been without Dalton Nixon recently. So many hits to this team, and I think it's important to note too, the talent that he was able to bring here with him. Jake Toulson, what a huge get. Mm-hmm. And yeah, sure, he was here first. He went to UVU with Coach Pope, so you could argue that it probably wasn't that much of a sell, but
it comes with Coach Pope,
right?
And Alex Barcelo also transferring over from UVU.
Barcelo's huge.
It's been a different, and even though he doesn't get the official plaque or award or whatever it is that they give out at these award ceremonies. He can hang his hat on one of the most exciting BYU seasons that we have seen in a long time. And sometimes it's just that fresh new face that gets fans energized in something
exciting.
New. He is embraced, as we talked about last week, to the Rock, president and vice president. They love everyone, just has been able to gather around Coach Pope this year.
Dropped a solid $1,800 at Cubbies the other night for the Rock.
Exactly.
Who does that?
Coach Pope.
Coach Pope.
Number one in our hearts.
Number one in our hearts.
WCC coach at BYU.
Potentially, yeah. Let's see, this short list, they've got 2, 4, 6, 10, a 10-person short list for the National Coach of the Year. Mm-hmm. Going up against San Diego State and Baylor and Gonzaga.
Those are 1 seeds.
Those are 1 seeds. And yeah, Kentucky. These are titans of the college basketball world, and your first year as head coach to come in and make that big of a statement is truly impressive.
So Coach Pope comes up short there. Yoli comes up short in the Player of the Year to Gonzaga's Philippe Petrushev. But the first team of the WCC, which I have a little bit of a beef with here as well, but the headline is BYU has 3 players in the All-WCC first team. That's out of 10. Hold on a second. If it's the first team in basketball, the way you do it is you have a starting 5. WCC named 10 players to their first team. The second and third teams just have 5 each also. But whatever it is, whatever the decision went into it, BYU got 3 guys on it. It's the guys you would expect, Jake Toulson, TJ Haas, and Yoli Childs, and I'm happy with that headline.
First the bowling-style tournament bracket, now 10 people on your first team. What is going on, WCC?
They need to reassess, I think. But it worked out in BYU's favor, at least in this case. So it's okay. And that puts a wrap on the WCC regular season, and now we look forward to the tournament. And here on the show, we covered kind of the tournament stylings and what to expect. BYU doesn't play till Monday night anyway, so we're not going to really know. Even as we sit here today, the play-in game for that, the quarterfinals, semifinals, whatever we're at right now, to even know who BYU plays isn't until later tonight. And so we're just going to take a moment and look back at what we've learned over the past couple months. We're going to take a look at BYU's season as a whole, how Yoli Childs got to this point of being a WCC Player of the Year contender, and how Coach Pope got to a Coach of the Year contender as well nationally. And that'll all be coming up next, right here on the Cougar Tailgate.
You guys remember talking about February before we got here, just about how February is a defining month? I think it is. Like February is rarely fun. Like it's just is you just are just digging through the mud. And you guys can remember the game, San Diego just digging through the mud the whole time, right? There's been others, and there was a ton of times for us to get frustrated and sideways and disinterested. There were so many opportunities. And that speaks to these young men. I'm telling you, it's these young men. It's the leadership of Jake Toolson and TJ Hawes and Yoli Childs, and equally or more as much from Zach Selyus and Alex Barcelo. And these are I'm telling you, these are special young men, and the things that you're listing off that are first time ever or whatever, that's because of what's inside of these guys, and it's really fun to watch.
Welcome into the Cougar Tailgate. My name is Cole Wissinger, and sitting right across from me, as always, is Sydney Carlson. How are you?
I'm great.
Good. We're going to keep going, and we're going to, before we look ahead to the exciting games still on BYU's schedule that, we don't know who they're going to play or when, NCAA tournament, WCC tournament, it's all to come. Let's control what we can control and just talk about the regular season that has now come to an end. It was all the way back in the beginning of November.
The
November
longest season.
5th. That BYU started this journey approximately 10 years ago by my estimation.
It's been a full lifetime.
Cal State Fullerton was first on the schedule and they got a win. Okay, good.
Easy.
On to next.
Easy win.
San Diego State. Now we look at them and they are a 1 seed and they were undefeated until this weird inexplicable slip up against UNLV, another team that will come up in BYU's schedule. And we were up by 9 and it was at home and oh boy.
Had that game. Literally had that game. And it was rough. That was a busy day. We had football in the morning, and we played a hard-fought battle against Liberty, but we won. And
harder than it should have been.
I think, honestly, it almost felt like a loss to me as we were going into the San Diego State game, and then we did lose. I just remember leaving that day being like, all right, let's put that one away, and let's move on.
Too much stress.
That was a rough Saturday. But you look at San Diego State, like you said, as a 1 seed. BYU has played 3 potential 1 seeds this season.
3 likely 1 seeds.
3 likely 1 seeds. You've got San Diego State, Kansas, and Gonzaga, split with Gonzaga, handily defeated by Kansas, but it's okay. You can't win them all. San Diego State was one that BYU could have had. And you look back and obviously you're missing Yoli, and I think with Yoli, like you contain that game and you have it in the bag, but it's an impressive look back on this season, knowing what we know now and knowing where we were at the start of the season and who we were missing. It's an impressive resume, one that we haven't had in a long time. And
we talk about basketball just in our off time as well. And you were mentioning that the season seems like it could be split up into the have and the have not when it comes to Yoli and a couple of the other players that have gone down. It's amazing to think back. We started the first 9 games, and these are going to be against a few resume kind of teams without Yoli Childs.
And performed admirably. I think San Diego State was a real bummer of a loss, just because we were ahead for so long. But they're a great team, and they've always been a great team. Mm-hmm. Boise State was probably the first really disappointing loss that I remember. I mean, jumping ahead, but...
And at the time, it was an overtime, and they're just another Mountain West kind of team. They ended up being at the top half-ish of the Mountain West, but... we still didn't know what we were going to get out of Mark Pope. It was the first year after Dave Rose. Yo isn't there. He came back, but isn't going to even make a difference. This BYU team is always just kind of third in the conference. And we'll slip up a few times. And I wasn't surprised by the Boise State loss. I just figured, this is one of the ones that just happen in a basketball season. Again, not realizing those kind of losses didn't happen in this basketball season. Not once we did get Yo back.
And like you said, you can break it down into it feels like 2 separate seasons and multiple different teams because there have been so many different combinations of guys on the floor at this point that it's just been a really unique season to watch how this team has been able to kind of cobble together what they can and put on a show.
They were definitely still figuring out their configuration and who was going to be the star because the game before Boise State, TJ Haas was coming off one of the most spectacular buzzer beaters of the whole NCAA tournament season. Like now because BYU's got the national attention, when ESPN puts together their like, this is what happened this year in college basketball, put TJ hitting that buzzer beater against Houston on there, because we're that kind of a team. And that happened this season too. Again, seems like years ago, but
he had a couple. He had a couple buzzer beaters. Do we want that Houston one, or
fast forward to conference play a little bit as well?
I mean, that's a far fast forward. We don't need to jump that far ahead. But yeah, there's just so many memorable moments to this year. And I look back and I can't think of a year really since Jimmer where there have been this many like key highlight moments that you're like throwing that up on the reels on ESPN or on Sports Nation or wherever it is. Like, there are these moments that stick out in our minds so much from this season. Even when you have dropped a few disappointing losses, not really knowing where you're at or who you are quite yet, it's been such a fun team to watch.
So let's talk about resume just for one moment, because then we got into the little Maui tournament, right? A tournament inside the tournament where we beat UCLA and then got your butt handed to you against Kansas, and then won against Virginia Tech. And I thought I'd take this opportunity to kind of explain how the tournament selection committee looks at wins and losses for a team. They use these quadrants. This is a new thing, newish. Like, maybe it's been 5 years. It seems new to me because I never knew what the workings were that figured out who got what seed. But the way they do it is the following. A quad 1 victory or loss counts as a home game against a 1 through 30 ranked net team. Now, this isn't the AP poll or Joe Lunardi's top 10 or whatever they do. This is the NET basketball rankings. If you're 1 through 30 ranked there, which, by the way, BYU ranked 9th in that particular ranking system, to give you an idea of where everyone's at. So if you're 1 through 30 at home against that team, that's a quad 1 game. Neutral site, 1 to 50. Away games, 1 to 75. All count as a quad 1 win, because it's harder to win on the road, right? Easier to win at home. It's making some sense so far.
I'm not going to lie. There's a blank expression on my face. I feel like that gif of Steve Nash in A Beautiful Mind when he's like writing on the windows.
And then you just kind of see
But you're doing great. It has nothing to do with your explanation. It's just, why is it so complicated?
Because it can. Quad 2 is the next chunk. So home games against 31 through 75. Neutral site games 51 through 100. Away games when you're ranked 76 through 135. You get a little bit of a buffer, and that counts as a quad 2 win or loss. And then quad 3, another chunk, and then quad 4, another chunk. I don't really care about quad 3 and 4 because guess what? BYU undefeated in the quads 3 and 4. That's normally where the weird, like, lower tier of WCC that got a fluky win against BYU show up. This year, nope. BYU, even in like the Boise State overtime loss or some of the maybe weaker losses on BYU's schedule, they were at least quad 2 losses. I
mean, even just with context clues, that sounds pretty great.
Yes. That's what I try to do. Try to explain something. I mean,
anytime you can say you haven't lost to any of the 2 bottom dwellers, 2 bottom dwelling quadrants. UCLA, I'm really trying to keep up. You've got a firm grasp on this quad system.
I majored in statistics. Did you know that? Brigham Young University.
You heard it here first,
thing
folks.
On my degree, it says statistics, not communications. I'm in my element.
Wow.
Talking about math and basketball.
I stayed away from math emphatically in my undergrad.
You know what my statistics classes taught me? It's that 76 is pretty decent and 155 is not. And that's all you really need to know when it comes to these quads. UCLA, we got a win against. They are the 76th team in the net right now. That was a neutral site. That's a quad 2, and it was a victory. That's good for BYU. Yeah. And the more of those, like, meaty parts of your schedule in the non-conference go towards you, that's good news. Even when it was without Yoli, even when it looks like a totally different team, it still is on the resume.
And UCLA has finished out their schedule in a way that it just keeps looking better and better for BYU. And like bless all of these teams that are like boosting our resume as the season goes along. Like, who would have thought? I mean, I certainly wouldn't have guessed going into that San Diego State game that by the end of the year they'd be looking at a 1 seed. Even when we're going head to head against them in the Mountain West Conference, they were never 1 seed material. They've always been good, but all of these teams that it's like, yeah, okay, we dropped that one, but it looks a lot better now when you can say, yeah, but we almost beat them and now they're a 1 seed, and we did beat Gonzaga, who was a 1 seed. So, thanks for being on message.
Everyone
else. We appreciate it.
Virginia Tech right around UCLA. They're 86 in the net. So again, a quad 2. You finish out the Maui Invitational going 2-1, and the only loss is against the current number 1 overall, which doesn't even count as far as anyone cares.
Right.
Of course you lose that one.
Yeah.
And then we have one game against, is it Montana Tech?
Montana Tech.
And then
Montana Tech was that
back.
sneaky game that we threw in there so that we could have Yoli back for Utah.
There was a 9th game.
Yep.
Because game 10 is Utah at Utah in overtime.
Oof.
With Yoli for half. Over half.
Beautifully with Yoli for half.
Mm-hmm.
What a gorgeous first half of basketball that was. It was one of those where you sit there and you're like, am I dreaming? Am I awake? What's happening? This is a little too good to be true. Anytime you're beating Utah that handily, it is just a joy, And so it hurts. It hurts when you know how the second half turned out.
Right now, and there's a reason I went to all that labor to explain what the net is, because Utah is currently ranked number 86 in the net. If it was an away game and it was a loss, if they can move up just 11 spots into the top 75, if they can do something in that Pac-12 tournament or make a case and have other laws, whatever math goes into the net, then BYU, that moves from a quad 2 loss to a quad 1 loss. And again, like we said before, this is the first loss of only 2 losses that Yoli Childs would experience. Yeah. But there was a double-digit lead when Yoli went out with an injury.
Right.
So I don't count it.
Doesn't count. Doesn't count. We're forgetting about it. It doesn't matter.
Moving on to that team that did beat San Diego State, UNLV. Beat them by 33.
No big deal.
Moving on. The other Nevada team beat them by 33.
Back-to-back 33.
Moving on. Utah State, the team that we thought would be at the top of the Mountain West. They ended up, again,
a team that was ranked like top 20 to start the season.
Get a win against that.
Yep, 4-point win.
4-point win against Utah State. That was in the Marriott Center, and that starts...
That was at Vivint Smart Home.
Ooh, you're correct. Because that was the Beehive Classic, and that's how BYU ended undefeated.
Undefeated in the Beehive Classic. World state champions.
That's world
yeah.
state champions.
It sounds more official and exciting if you put world in front of it.
Gotcha. Take the ball, go home. No more Beehive Classics.
Right.
BYU won it. No need to even wonder.
Like everyone
anymore.
was just really tired of losing all the time. So
they just couldn't handle it.
They couldn't handle it. They were like, we don't want to do this anymore. BYU is just too good.
And then to get into WCC play, Weber State, Oral Roberts, a couple more wins, boost up the non-conference just a little bit, not the quad 3 and 4, just kind of beef it. And then you're into WCC play.
Yeah, so you get 4 solid victories, all with Yoli, and then you jump right into St. Mary's without him, and it hurts you a little bit. And that's one of the first notable WCC games, is that St. Mary's overtime loss on the road. Not your favorite, but also it just is so indicative of what this team is and is not without Yoli Childs.
Mm-hmm. And again, an overtime loss on the road doesn't hurt you really that much, and that was kind of the story of before BYU hit their stride. But once Yoli comes back, right, and we thought that he was going to be around maybe for that week and a half later against Gonzaga. He's not. So again, they were number 1 at that time. Doesn't even count. Moving on, the rest of that WCC schedule, starting with Pacific, where Yoli is back, and going on, you only have 1 loss. And so again, because I personally don't count as Utah as a Yoli game,
yeah.
Yo lost one game the whole season, and it was the flukiest of flukin' San Francisco. BYU again, double-digit lead. Right. Then San Francisco got hot. Really, one particular player on San Francisco got hot. Shabazz, who came off the bench in that game to go 10 for 10 and have 32 points. If he misses any one of those buckets,
we win.
It's a win because we only lost by one. And if that's your weird fluky game, I'm okay with it because San Francisco is still, fifth in the WCC. They were doing pretty good. They pushed Gonzaga to their limits in their game. Not a bad loss.
Not a terrible loss. A disheartening one for sure.
Yeah.
But Shabazz, that's a performance that is just unreal. Nobody comes in and goes 10 for 10. That is, how do you account for that? Sometimes there's just...
Colby Lee went 8 for 8 a couple games before.
Hey.
So you can get close, but not 10 for 10.
And San Francisco has a history of putting games together like this where they kind of let BYU take control and then turn it on in the last second. And unfortunately, it's one that we dropped. But you look at the overall resume, the whole picture, and that one doesn't hurt you as bad. In years past, some of these WCC losses have just been brutal when you look at them. A bad loss to a Pacific team when they weren't as good as they were this year. Usually Pacific is, bottom 2, and when you have a loss like that, even on the road, those are unacceptable.
That's when you look at BYU sitting on the bubble on Selection Sunday, and you think, oh, why didn't we get in? It's because of those.
It's because of those.
You had a couple
losses.
Cool wins. They beat Gonzaga from time to time, and that's fun. But
ultimately meaningless if you can't pick up the games that should basically be gimmies.
Yes.
And luckily, BYU was able to avoid those this year. Some disappointing conference losses. Really, just that one really disheartening one against San Francisco. But a loss to Gonzaga, you're always going to have a loss to Gonzaga. You're more likely than not going to have a loss to St. Mary's. But
both of those, and all three of those being on the road. Because once we were in the Marriott Center for conference play, undefeated. Good job, Rock.
Our only loss in the Marriott Center was that San Diego State game. That's pretty impressive.
That's against a 1 seed?
Against a 1 seed. I'm okay with it.
They end the season with 9 straight wins. You rattle them off. They score over 100 against Pepperdine. They put up 18 threes in a single game later on. They beat Gonzaga. They beat San Francisco, and they beat St. Mary's, the 3 teams that you lost to earlier, all part of that last stretch.
Revenge tour.
Exactly, and it worked out, and then you cap it off with a victory against Pepperdine to make sure there are no dumb losses, and you're going into the WCC sitting pretty. Final record of BYU, how we got there, 24-7, 13-3 in conference.
It's a great jumping off point as you look to go into the WCC tournament too, and being solidly the 2 seed is such a good feeling. I know I talked about this before, but for the first time in so long, it's you can breathe a sigh of relief because BYU's in the tournament. We're in it. You would have to essentially stop playing basketball to not at this point. And that is such a relief, and that you can almost enjoy the tournament a little bit more. At this point, it's just you're playing for a seed. You're playing for a better slot. And sure, I absolutely want a victory on Monday, and I would love a victory on Tuesday. Mm-hmm. But regardless, you can kind of go in and enjoy what this team has been able to put together up to this point and relax a little bit more as you watch the tournament and have a little more fun with it, rather than every basket is crucial to getting into that big dance. It's not that way. Now you can just kind of hope and pray that it means you get a little bit better seed, but it's not as nervy and anxiety ridden as it might be.
And right now, the worst case scenario is you slip a couple seed spots down and you end up having to play a 1 or a 2. But the way the NCAA works is they try to avoid, rematches in the first couple rounds because BYU already has 3 of the 4 1 seeds on their schedule.
Right.
If you slip down to an 8, that means you just get Baylor, probably. That's the other presumptive 1 seed. And
I hope so.
I don't know if that's too bad. They just slipped up against TCU last Saturday. they're vulnerable as well.
The worst case scenario for me would be to get trapped in Gonzaga's quadrant. No, thank you. I do not want to play them 4 times this year if I don't have to. If it's in the national championship game, then I guess
we can make our way there eventually. Yeah,
but it's because I look back at like BYU soccer and the straw that they pulled in the NCAA tournament, having Stanford in their bracket. Eight. Yeah, it's just like, yeah, sure. If you're the team that should make it to the Final Four and to the national championship team, then you should be able to get past any team that comes.
If you're going to win the national championship, you have to win everything. But whoever made it to the national championship against Stanford didn't have to play Stanford until they got there.
Exactly.
That could have been BYU.
100%. So, yeah, I would love to not have to face Gonzaga until the national championship. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying right now, no, I'm not. I'm not saying
that BYU is going to win everything.
I'm absolutely not.
I'm all right with that. When we come back, Sydney Carlson will give her official predictions of where she thinks BYU will be in the NCAA tournament, and we'll talk a little bit more about what the WCC tournament means and some of the other things you can expect there in Las Vegas this weekend. That's coming up next on the Cougar Tailgate. Tailgate. My name is Cole Wissinger, and still sitting over there, Sydney Carlson.
How's it going?
Thanks for not leaving. It seems like an update every time, I'm here, you're there. Nothing changed.
We have glass in between us again, everyone. Just so you're aware.
It's a weird studio.
You didn't know we were so good at hiding it.
Ugh. They move us around. There's busy things happening at BYU Radio.
This is a professional broadcast establishment.
It's true.
There's things happening. People are busy. We get it.
It's funny. I mean, we were talking about the different interviews that we've done with various folks across the WCC this year. And as I was trying to imagine who I was talking to, I could picture which of the 5 different studios I had bounced around to either record it ahead of time or that we did it live on the Saturday for you. Or like I could, as I was picturing talking about Steve Nash, I knew that I was in Studio 1B when I was doing that. I think
I've only been in 3, so I'd have to graduate to the full experience at some point.
They'll take you around. So this week it is the WCC tournament. It has already started. It's happening It's happening tonight, and then it will continue on Monday and Tuesday. And we hope BYU will be participating in both of those games. Yeah. BYU is in Las Vegas for that at the Orleans Arena, which has a fresh new look for the WCC tournament this year.
It does. Don't care for it, Cole. Don't care for it.
Oh. It looked, the tweet that they threw out seemed fancy.
There's this trend right now with courts where they create this like grayscale look, and it just every time I see it makes me think that the coloring on my TV is off.
Oh, it's the Barclays Center in Brooklyn where the Brooklyn Nets play.
And have I ever sounded more like a don't get off my lawn person in my life? Probably not. But I just remember like every time I look over at the screen, I'm like, will somebody fix the TV, please? That like gray, and then they have like that mint green almost color that they're leaning into.
Yes.
I don't mind the color, but everything looks like it's got like a Instagram filter on it or something. I don't know.
So all the different teams coming into the WCC are just going to wear their normal jerseys, and so that'll kind of throw it off. The worst thing about the Nets doing it is that they also just wear black and white or gray. And so whichever team is coming to town, like I love when they play Miami and they're wearing their like hot pink Miami Vice style jerseys against this just all black and white and gray everything else. Or Memphis. The other day, Memphis was wearing the Vancouver Grizzlies era jerseys against the Nets, and it was just the starkest pop that you could imagine. And
you know what?
Your eyes just freak out.
You know what it is? Do you remember there was a trend for a while, like in the early to mid 2000s, where people would take color pop pictures where everything was like black and white, and then you would pick one color to have like stand out?
Oh, yeah.
That's what it looks like. And I don't...
That's like when we were first learning what Photoshop was, and now we're doing it for real.
Yeah. And like, I don't know, as a colorblind person... How does that?
It's so
how does it affect the old noodle?
It's because sometimes I think things are black and white anyway, and then when I'm watching a Nets game, it actually is, and then just someone else comes into my screen that is blindingly lime green or whatever, and I can't even tell what that it's. I know that it's weird. I can't put a finger on what the heck is going on, but this is the world I live in every day. That you just have to get this little piece of.
Should we do a 5K run for you?
Yes, please.
Okay, great.
To support the Pro-Am colorblind people across central Utah.
And their plight in watching sporting events. So
when you talked about the like color pop thing, I know what you're talking about. I know the concept. I hate those pictures because I don't realize what's going on. I didn't know it's a special thing.
I'm so sorry. How insensitive of me to bring it up.
There's a Karl Malone. I have a buddy that works in the mall that works for a sports store. I go talk to him all the time. There's a picture up there that's like on canvas, very nice, like $75, put in your house and frame it kind of like picture of Karl Malone wearing a purple Jazz jersey where everything else is black and white. Sure. And my eyes also think that he's black and white. Like when he first like showed me, hey, this is a really cool new picture we got, I was like it's a black and white picture of Karl Malone. No, like the purple is
completely lost on you.
Black and white picture of Karl Malone. There's a movie, Memento, where like the whole concept of it is that some of it is going forward in time, some is back in time, some is black and white, some is color.
How confusing was that movie for you?
I thought the whole thing was in black and white, and so I didn't realize that there was like cohesion between what was going which way. And
moral of the story is WCC, look at what you're doing to Cole.
I'm confused.
It's so confusing, and it's just unfair. Like we're here trying to give the good people the content, and it's just
I don't know what to do. I'm lost. The WCC has dibs on the Orleans Arena for this week. And then the WAC comes to town. Maybe they'll update the floor for the WAC. Maybe this is just a WCC thing. Turns out there's more than one basketball stadium in Las Vegas, which doesn't even have an NBA team. We're hanging out in the Orleans. The T-Mobile Arena, which is where the Las Vegas Golden Knights of hockey play, they get the Pac-12, and then the Thomas & Mack Center, where UNLV is at. And I remember I was in Studio 2B when I interviewed the fella from UNLV talking about how cool the Thomas & Mack Center. In the Thomas & Mack Center for UNLV games, they put off fireworks inside the Thomas & Mack Center. That's what I remember from that interview. And if you want to check it out, you can go check out our podcast feed where you can find all of the interviews that we've done across the year and get really caught up. And
did he tell you like what level of fireworks? Like, are we talking?
I mean, more than
like
sparklers.
Ones or like
something
Disney
goes
level
up.
Fireworks.
I was yeah, Disney. They take the roof off the Thomas & Mack every night, and they shoot. No, they shoot off real fireworks inside a building. I was confused,
wow.
but
wow.
I might have to go back and listen to it, actually, because it still doesn't make sense to me. Anyway, the Thomas & Mack is where the Mountain West does their tournament. 3 different stadiums in Las Vegas. It's a busy time. Basically, the entire western United States of college basketball converges, and they figure out who their tournament champions are.
Yeah, and Vegas, obviously a place that BYU is very familiar with, having been in the Mountain West Conference most recently, and
WCC now.
Fun fact, BYU, I may have already mentioned this on the podcast, I'm not positive, but the BYU game ops team is actually running all the game ops for the entire West Coast Conference tournament at the New Orleans Arena. The conference came to our marketing staff and just said, hey, nobody does game day like you do. The experience that you guys put on is
which is something that we all know. But it's nice to get the recognition from outside.
So if you see some things that feel a little familiar as a BYU fan, it's because it is.
We're making you feel at home. So define for the folks at home that are just fans and watch basketball from time to time, what is a game op? What does that even – like what are they doing to make game day anything?
Sure. So it's somebody described it much better than I have tried to in the past, which is that basically anything that's not the game at the game is what the game ops team is doing.
Gotcha.
So anytime there's a time, like a break in the action and there's stuff happening on the video board, or if they bring people out on the court to do a promotion or halftime entertainment.
Someone's shooting from half court to win $8,000.
Right. Also, any kind of LED signage that's happening. So if you're watching it on TV, there's like courtside LED with advertisements.
Sure.
That's the game ops team is running all of that. The companies that you see are going to be different because that's all gone through the conference. But all of that kind of game day atmosphere stuff, that's being run by BYU's own marketing team.
Are we taking Cougar tailgates down there forever? Cougar tails?
Cougar tails? We should ship them in and be like, make everyone be like, hey, so this is our house. So thank you for coming, and we will be taking that trophy home. Thanks.
That's the plan, and that is still to come here. Make sure to watch, and if you are in town, go down to the Orleans Arena Monday night for BYU's matchup against either St. Mary's or someone else. We still don't know.
And hopefully then, the women on Monday as well.
And absolutely, yeah, women
go support
play
the girls
in the same tournament. Fantastic.
They do.
Paisley Johnson, one of the gals that's playing for the women's basketball team this weekend. She's recently
engaged to a fellow that's also busy down there in Las Vegas.
One Connor Harding. You know what? They should just go get it done. They're both there. They're in Vegas.
That's where you get married.
That's where you get married. Guys, listen. This is a great idea. I'm talking to you specifically. No
need to be distracted by a game or anything. Go ahead and get married.
Oh, you're down there to get married now. That's the new goal.
Well, we've done our recap of the regular season that was for BYU basketball, so when we come back, we'll play some of the sounds, the highlights from the first game to the last to get you ready for postseason play. You're listening to the Cougar Tailgate. Don't go anywhere.
Kispert will pull and fire and miss the three. The rebound to Gilder with 2 and 1. Floats and misses, and it is indeed over! And here come the fans! They're storming the floor at the Marriott Center! Senior night is a night to remember for the BYU Cougars. Your final score, 91-78. The Cougs have won it!
You remember that game, right? No Cougar fan's going to forget it anytime soon. Hey, welcome back into the Cougar Tailgate. Sydney and I have spent the day kind of recapping the season that it was before we look ahead to postseason play. That means the WCC tournament this weekend / Monday and Tuesday. It can be a long weekend for y'all. And then, of course, the month is March, and March Madness is coming. The NCAA tournament will be on its way before you know it. And so before we go on there, let's listen back to some of the highlights that you heard with this BYU team this year.
Tosses it up, and we are underway. Colby Lee slaps it back to Alex Barcelo, and BYU will take it from back to front, right to left as we see it, and you hear it.
The Cougars come out. This will probably be TJ to take it and go and score or dish. Harding, Haas, Barcelo, Toulson, and Nixon are the 5 on the floor for BYU. Harding inbounds to Haas with 3 seconds. Haas pulls up, fades away. Gets it! It comes in! TJ Haas hits a base! I don't know if you can hear me. I just got my headset yanked off. That was one of the highlights of my sports career. I'm 48, and TJ hits it, and he's 2 feet away from me. And I got to give him the first hug, and everybody just came flying over here and knocking him around. That was about as cool a thing as I've experienced. So permit me to just kind of pretend like I was part of the team for that moment, because that was a blast.
Man.
Sellius!
And the other way, Zach Sellius for 3, and the Cougars go up 5. It's a 14-0 run. 45-40, Zach for 3.
Just kind of wait for BYU to hit a couple, and they can score quickly.
Evan Troy for 3. And there it is! There it is! For the first time in BYU basketball history, it's 18 threes in a game. 18 triples has never been done until tonight. The BYU 3 party here in LA. Both shooting a very frigid number in the early part of the year. A drive and drift to the right corner. Nell, that might, oh yeah. Trevin Nell. Yes.
The second he shot it.
Trevin Nell for 3. So Trevin Nell takes the lid off from deep. He was 2 for 11 from distance before that make.
Some shots he's just like, well, that's in. You don't even have to watch.
Down to a 7-second shot clock for BYU. Jake to Yo, another three. This is the left wing. Good again. Yoli Childs, 3 for 3 from 3, and the Cougars lead is a game-high 8 at 16-8, 15:30 to go until halftime.
He's been watching guys for a month shoot threes. He's I can do that.
TJ deep and got it. Top of the key. Three-pointer for TJ Haas to Harding for another 3. Good again. Connor Harding, 3 threes. Marcelo with a 30-second game clock. Penetrate to the right elbow. Hand off to Nixon. Back to AB. He's got the 3. He takes it. He makes it! Alex Marcelo knocks it down! AB for 3! Harding jabbing on Kessler Edwards. The baseline feed goes to Nixon. The whip out to Toulson for 3. He got it again. Jake Toulson has 25 with a career-high 7 3-point field goals. A new career high on 7 for 9 tonight, by the way. Toulson accelerates to the free throw line, pulls it out to the left side, stops on the arc left, and hands to Lee. Lee will try the 3 and score it! Colby Lee for 3!
What a night.
His career night continues. 8 for 8 and 21 points for Colby Lee. BYU front court right side. Cougs having a tough time getting consecutive makes and consecutive stops right now as USF's doing a nice job responding on every BYU big shot. Straddling the three-point line left side is Nixon. Now faces the basket, bounces twice, terminates, and looks for help. Has it in Haas. Pulls and fires and scores again from 3. TJ Haas heating up. He's got 8. And that puts him in the BYU career top 10, solo 10th place, passing McKelly Wesley, BYU's 10th all-time leading scorer. BYU's lead goes to 7 at 29-22. TJ now 1,741 career points, one more than McKelly Wesley, and now solo 10th place in BYU hoops history. Into Scott. Scott banks and misses. Rebound to Yo, and that's 1,000.
There it is.
Career rebounds for Yo. Marcelo the rebound, number 5 for AB. AB will drive it, hand it off low to Yo. Yo at the rim, up and it is! 2 points. He passes Russ Larson into 6th place on the all-time career scoring tally. 1,886 points for Yo. The only jump hook is good!
There it is.
2001, a child's odyssey, as Yoli goes over the 2,000-point plateau, and the Cougars have their game-high 8-point lead. TJ Haas will enter it off the backside of the Hokie, and he scores!
Mark the Rabu! I did that once. That was awesome.
He bounced it off of Jalen Cohn's backside and lays it up and in with the foul for the 50-48 lead and a chance for a 3-point play. Alex Marcelo has it stripped. Finally got it back. It goes to Nixon, whipped to Harding. He'll drive the rim and dunk it! Connor Harding cleared for takeoff. And he makes it a 15-point game, 29-14. TJ driving Williams to the rim. Stop. Pop. Score! TJ to the 10 for 2, and the Cougs up 9. It's all TJ Haas.
TJ freaking Haas.
TJ runs it, lobs it to Yo, and the hammer. The alley-oop throwdown. Leaking is Childs, and he hammers it home on the deep throw by Jake. Zags are off to a 5 for 12 shooting start. Open 3 left side. Take it and miss it. Tip follow good. Harding missed the 3, and Gavin Baxter has his first points of the season on the follow slam. To the top side, to the left wing, to Yo. Yo dives low, and a one-hand hammer.
Remarkable performance.
38 points from Yoli Childs. Those will be his final points of the day as he checks out. BYU goes up 18, 81-63. Standing ovation from the BYU fans here at Firestone. BYU in front court, 10 seconds to play. Crossover by TJ. Drives past Kuzi for the dunk and the tie. 77-77. 6.6. Ford with 5 and with 4 and with 3. Ford floater missed it. We are going to overtime. 2.6 to go. Far sideline send in. 15-20 feet from the end line. The ball will be given to Sullivan. Baxter's in the face of Sullivan. Sullivan in the corner. A shot taken and missed at the horn by Hartfield. BYU hangs on to win it. Dukas on the end line, gets it into Ford with 7 and with 6. He's at 5. He gets into the paint. He teardrops it. He missed it with 2 and with 1. A block shot. It's over. It's over. It's over. And the Cougars have won it. The Cougars defended the final possession to perfection and get out of here some way, somehow, with the win.
It has been a crazy year for BYU basketball, and the best news of all, it's not over yet. There's a WCC tournament and then an NCAA tournament on the horizon. Sydney and I will be with you through it all. This is the Cougar Tailgate. We come to you on BYU Radio every Saturday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, or, an hour later if Sports Nation is doing a special from the WCC tournament. You can also check out the podcast anytime you want. It's Cougar Tailgate on any of your podcast apps or devices. We are a production of BYU Radio. My name's Cole Wissinger. That over there is Sydney Carlson. Go Cougs!